Here on Radio Adelaide, it's 17 minutes to 5 o'clock, and our tour of the festivals continues. I'm really pleased to welcome into the studio two more guests, Dave Clark and Jigme Namgyal. Now, Jigme, the first question I want to ask you is, how do you say your name correctly? Because I'm sure that was wrong.
Okay. Jigme Namgyal.
Jigme Namgyal.
Yes, Jigme Namgyal.
It's quite easy.
Yes.
It is. And Jigme, you are Tibetan.
Yes, I'm Tibetan.
But you don't live in Tibet, as many people who are travelling out from Tibet obviously don't live in Tibet these days. They have to live somewhere else. Tell us a bit about your background and story of growing up.
Okay, well. So, I was born in Tibet, the capital of Lhasa, since 1978, 15 July. And since that time, I was studying Chinese school for 5 years. After that, I escaped from Tibet to India and for visit His Holiness Dalai Lama in the Dharamsala. And after that, my parents led me to Tibetan homeschool, Missouri. So since that time, I started to learn about the Tibetan culture and the Tibetan language and everything I learned from that school.
So not when you were growing up, you had to leave Tibet to learn the language and culture? Yes.
I left from Tibet since when I was 7 or 8 years old. And after that, then after graduate my school from Missouri, then I straight joined into the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts in Dharamsala, where His Holiness lives there. So since that time, I become one of the professional artists in that institution. And I could learn more and more and more Tibetan culture and everything.
Well, it says here that you are an exponent of Tibetan folk and opera and modern music. So you range across these three different styles of music?
Well, like Tibetan pop songs, this time the people in India, like Asian countries, they like very much than the folk, because they are very, like noisy, crowdy, and so something like that. And the Tibetan modern songs, sometimes they mix up like the Western tune, and then modern they also like the Western song. I mean the Western tune, and also the style a bit like Indian sometimes, and sometimes they like a bit like a Western song, And yes, but the lyrics all are Tibetan, something like that. So they almost something like a remix songs.
Yeah.
But the traditional, it's pure songs which is there from the many centuries before. They play the same songs. It's totally different with the modern songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's something like, in our Tibetan modern song, they're including like environmental songs and love songs, and the song dedicated to His Holiness Dalai Lama, and also a song dedicated to the parents and the brave people who die for the freedom for the Tibet. So like different type of Tibetan pop song we have.
Well, I know there's a huge Tibetan population up in the northern parts of India, and our other guest in the studio here, Dave Clark, you met Jigme in Dharamsala.
Yes, I went over there partly for a holiday and also to learn a bit more about Buddhism and a few personal endeavours, and I played some music, a fair bit of music as a musician, and I went to the Tibetan Institute for Performing Arts, TIPA, and said I wanted to meet some performers and exchange some songs, and the director of TIPA introduced me to Jigme, and we played a bit of music together, and I did a concert at a cafe. Mainly, there are a few Tibetans in the cafe, but many Western Israelis and some Australians, and so I did a concert of music which included some poetry that I'd written about my visit to India. And I invited Jigme to come and present some solo songs. Now, TIPA is mainly an institute of ensemble, people working together, and there's not a lot of individual performers, but I said to Jigme, you have a certain quality in your performances that people would love. And so he came to the cafe, and he did some of his songs with his lute and his flute, and the people just loved it. And so that led to me sponsoring Jigme as a professional artist, even for a short time. But we succeeded. It's taken 6 months. And Jigme's just arrived. He's here for 3 months, and he's doing some performances on his own. I'll join him for some. He's at the Adelaide Children's Festival and a few other places. And
we certainly don't get to hear or see much Tibetan music here in Australia, in Adelaide. So I think probably most of our listeners have no idea what Tibetan music would sound like. Did you know before you went to Dharamsala, were you familiar with Tibetan music traditions? Or?
I'd heard a little bit, but it's a very broad and precise art, particularly the opera. The folk music that we call folk music, giving that in bracket thing, whatever we mean by folk music, many of the songs that Jigme sings, which I would call traditional or folk songs, have a similar feel to folk music all over the world. And so there is a link there, and I had heard some of that. It's a lot different to the Buddhist chanting, that's a different part altogether, but some of the opera is something that was fairly new to me, although I had seen some of it in Malaysia with the Festival of the Hungry Ghosts. They have these tours, of performers where they do opera, and some of that opera goes back countless thousands of years, and so there's a similarity. But certainly I think Jigme is, in my opinion, one of the great exponents of all of these things, and he plays the most beautiful instruments, and he's done a CD. I think we're going to hear a track that we'll get Jigme to explain shortly, and that's being pressed at the moment in Adelaide. We're doing 50 copies because he brought the master with him. So if anyone likes it, they can get on to me or to you.
Give us a call. Well, look, why don't we play a little bit more?
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll talk about it after we've heard it. Jigme Namgyal. I mucked it up again. That's all right. He's our guest here in the studio along with Dave Clark. And Jigme is here for a whole range of performances. Among them, he'll be at the Francis Folk Gathering, which is on this weekend at the tiny little town of Francis, which is halfway between Narracourt and Bordertown. So I'm told, never been there myself. But a really interesting free festival with lots of things for people of all ages on. Dave's on there as well, I understand. And also at the children's part of Adelaide, you can hear Jigme. And in and around town, Port Fairy Folk Festival as well. And in and around town for a few more months as Dave and he work together to get better known. So, Jigme, can you tell me this song that we're hearing a little bit in the background of? What are you singing about in this song?
Well, this song is about Tibetan nomad songs, and normally we Tibetan have different kind of nomad song from the different part of region. like for example, like we have 3 provinces in Tibet, like Totu, Tame, Uzang, and this is the under region of Tibet. So the nomads usually they move one place to another with the Tibetan national animal yak. So while they're traveling to one place to another, so they used to sing like that kind of a tune on the way.
So this is a travelling song.
Yeah.
As they're walking through the mountains.
Yes.
You can hear the mountains in there, can't you?
You can hear the echo back and forward from the mountains, absolutely. And your voice when you're singing this, there's a vocal style with a little catch in the throat there that I can hear. Is that a typical Tibetan style of singing, or is that your particular style? Or?
No. Normally we have the own style to how to sing the like a nomad song or Tibetan song or folk songs, because we have a different style of the traditional songs, and also they have different kind of the style to sing from the throat. So like this kind of nomad song, I found the normally people, the Tibetan people used to high pitch to sing like that kind of songs. I mean the nomad songs, and as well as the opera songs. Yes.
Well, it's a really lovely sound. It's very sweeping.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You can hear the high mountain ranges in there. And was that the sort of thing that struck you when you heard Jigme in Dharamsala?
Yeah, well, just this voice is just
kind of... turn you on.
Jigme's voice just flows over the top of everything. It's... he's playing the flute as well here. I mean, he's an incredibly talented musician, but the voice, I think, is pretty amazing. But some of the other songs on the track are much more, you might say, rhythmic. I would say this is very much a melody, that just flows out of the mountains. But some of the music is also fairly rhythmic, very much like a traditional folk song. Which that's got that quality that shows some other aspects of Jigme's vocal qualities.
Well, it sounds like we're very lucky to have you here in Australia for more than a very short time, and very glad that you were able to sponsor Jigme to come out here. And again, the Francis Folk Gathering is on from tomorrow through to the 2nd of March, so over the weekend. It's only about 4 hours down to Bordertown. Well, 4 if you maybe go a little bit too fast. And it's a free festival, isn't it? So
yes, you can camp down there, and there's food put on, or you can camp make your dinner. And there's lots of competition, singing competition. I'm trying to talk Jigme into going in to the singing competition. I don't know how he'll compete amongst the Irish and the Australian bush balladeers, but I'm sure he have a good go.
Interesting. Blow them off the stage. So much for coming into the studio, Dave.
Pleasure, Deb.
And Jigme, lovely to meet you. And let's just hear a little bit more of Jigme before we go.